Hey, and welcome everybody to this week's edition of the Life and Legacy Show, sponsored by the Sechler Law Firm, where great families make great estate plans. Welcome to the show. On this show, we talk about all things estate planning and other areas of interest for people who are interested in putting together good plans for their family, particularly for their retirement years, to making sure that we have a plan when life throws us a curveball. And sometimes we talk about estate planning tools like wills and trusts, and sometimes we talk about other related things. I talk an awful lot on this show about the nursing home, and we're going to talk about an article that came out in the Post Gazette this week that I think we all need to be paying very close attention to because I think it's a big problem, and it's easy for this stuff to sort of hit the back burner in the news cycle. But a real big issue concerning nursing homes this week, and I want to talk about it. I want to bring some light to you, give you a little opinion and commentary as to what I think is going on here. And it's something that needs to be on your radar. So, before we get into that, if you're new to the radio show, my name is Tim Sechler. I own a thing called the Sechler Law Firm, where we are predominantly a estate planning and elder law firm. We write lots of wills and trusts. We do post-death administration work. We also help a particular type of client who needs long-term care. And people are quick to find out that when you need long-term care in a nursing home, the nursing home admission is a legal problem. Right. If any other creditor on the planet were coming after you for $15,000 a month that you had not previously planned for, you would probably consider that to be a legal problem, and you would go seek the services of an attorney to help protect yourself from that. Same thing happens in long-term care. $15,000 is a lot. You're going to keep spending $15,000 a month until you go broke, at which point in time you can go on Medicaid benefits. And we're going to talk about some of the shortfalls in Medicaid. But one of the things that we like to do at our law firm is advise clients on how to get the care you need without going broke first, which seems to me to be a worthwhile concern. I started the law firm after watching my own grandfather go through his life savings in a nursing home. Didn't have to go that way, didn't have to be that way. And so I've made a career of advising people on this and other related issues. But here's the article that we want to discuss today. There was an article in a Post Gazette. I'm going to pull it up on my phone as I'm chatting with you here, June 9th, 2024, on in the Post Gazette. The title is Bankruptcies and Closures Rock Senior Care Across Pennsylvania. The intro line: the bankruptcies of 21 skilled nursing and personal care centers in Pennsylvania in 16 days are roiling long-term care for seniors and their families, while industry insiders warn their turmoil is far from over. And if you check out this article, you're going to see 12 Pittsburgh area personal care homes and nursing homes, 12 combined, have filed for bankruptcy. That was in May. 2 weeks later, they were joined with 9 other senior care facilities across the state seeking Chapter 11 protection under the bankruptcy code, and 2 other nursing homes, which Pittsburgh Skilled Nursing and Rehabilitation in Shadyside and Jefferson Hills Healthcare and Rehab in Clairton, in recent months announced they were closing, citing financial issues as they displaced patients and threw staff out of work. All right, so that's what's going on in the Post Gazette this week. Now let's break this down a little bit. I happen to know a couple things about the way that the long-term care industry works in some things that are going on in this industry that can lead to this. But let's just start with the general idea that long-term care facilities closing is bad, right? If you got a disagreement with that, I don't know what stance you would take from a ideological standpoint to come up with nursing homes closing is good. I think nursing home closing and personal care home closing is bad. And if we can agree that long-term care facilities is bad, then we can move on from this. Long-term care facilities is bad in particular because the baby boomer generation, the biggest generation in American history, is reaching their senior years, and over the course of the next 15, 20, are going to need long-term care. So it's a pretty inopportune time to have long-term care facilities closing. Now, long ago, it might have been the case that if dad needed long-term care, one of the kids would take care of dad, right? But long ago, generally speaking, both spouses weren't working. Kids didn't move as far from home as they do now, and it was more. There was a greater opportunity for family caregiving 50 years ago than there is today. It was just different. Now we have a situation where the daughter doesn't live next door. The daughter has her own job. The daughter cannot be the care provider. So we either need to have care provided in the home by professionals, or we need a personal care or skilled nursing facility. That's just the way America works these days. Okay. Now, here's the problem though. We can't have all these places closing. We can't have the owners of these places running out of money, because who then is going to take care of the baby boomer population, right? Valid questions, I think, to ask. And when you've got 21 of these places filing for bankruptcy in a month, the warning bells are going off. The red light is flashing in the long-term care industry, and it's a worthwhile question to ask: what the heck is going on? And is there anything that our policymakers can do to fix it? So I'd like to give you my take on this. In the long shot instance that you want to forward this podcast or this video to some of our policymakers, I'd love to speak to you, but let me just give you my synopsis of this. I have long said on this show and in other places that the way we treat seniors in this country is flat out broken, right? Our healthcare system for seniors is broken. Okay. Let's start with the idea that most seniors are on Medicare benefits, right? So you pay into the system your whole life with the idea that when I turn 65, I can apply for Medicare. And then when I apply for Medicare and I become eligible for Medicare, I've got health care regardless of pre-existing conditions, regardless of, I've got some options to choose, but I've got my health care coverage met in my retirement years. And that's the line that we have been given for decades and decades and decades and decades. In Medicare and Medicaid, this whole system was created in the 1950s and 60s when people didn't live as long, and 1 in 3 of us were not getting dementia, and the daughter was the caregiver next door. And that was this healthcare system in the 1950s and 60s when they built this. Okay. And so now Medicare is largely in the acute care business. Okay. Um, what does that mean? Acute care generally means medications, surgery, hospitalizations, treatment, rehabilitation, short term. It means medical care responding to an issue that requires acute medical intervention. Okay. That's what Medicare does. A and B is hospitalization and doctor. All right. Good. That's Medicare. We need coverage for those things. There's nothing wrong with the fact that we have coverage for those things. There are lots of confusing options to decide when you go on to Medicare, whether I do traditional Medicare, an Advantage plan, Medigap policies, prescription drug coverage. They haven't made this thing easy, but generally speaking, you have coverage if you're over 65 for those needs. However, the one thing that Medicare doesn't pay for is custodial long-term care. Medicare just doesn't pay for long-term care. Medicare pays for acute care. They don't pay for long-term care. Why is that? Because the system is 70 years old. And at the time, paying for long-term care wasn't the thing that people were worried about. People were only living into their 60s and 70s, and the daughter lived next door. Now, it's not that way anymore. And according to the Alzheimer's Association, 1 in 3 of us will have dementia. All right. So if 1 in 3 of us are going to have dementia, and according to longtermcare.gov, 2/3 of us are going to need some form of custodial long-term care. And for 1 out of 5 of us, that long-term care will exceed 5 years. So I got a 20% chance of needing care for more than 5 years. All right. So now let's talk about what that means. Well, we just defined Medicare isn't going to pay for this care that I've got a 2/3 chance of needing. Okay. I got a 1 in 5 chance is going to be for 5 years. So Medicare is not going to pay for this care. Well, who is going to pay for this care? Well, in most cases, you're going to pay privately until you go broke, and then Medicaid can pay. Okay. But that requires us to take a look at different types of facilities. So in Pennsylvania, we got a thing called an independent living facility, which is not really necessarily custodial long-term care. That is, you're living independently on your own. Maybe there's some help with, food prep or laundry or those types of things. I'm done going up and down the stairs. I'm going to move into this place where, where I can get along more easily. But people in independent living, a lot of them are still driving. It's not really custodial long-term care. Next step up is a thing called a personal care home. Now, the personal care home, I need some help, right? There's standby assistance. They're helping with the activities of daily living, like eating, like showering, like changing my clothes, getting in and out of bed, going to the bathroom. There's people there to help me with those things in a personal care home. The same type of care being provided at a facility called an assisted living facility. The way it shakes out in Pennsylvania, we have way more personal care homes than we have assisted living facilities. It's a little bit of a different license, but it's pretty much the same patient being seen there. Okay, so we get this personal care home setting. Now, in Pennsylvania, personal care homes are 100% private pay, which means you got to have some cash, right? It's common in Pennsylvania for a personal care home to go anywhere from like $6,000 to $9,000 a month, and you can spend more than that in a personal care home, all out of pocket. Okay, so let's call that $100,000 a year. It probably shakes out to somewhere between $80,000 to $100,000 a year. Well, not every family has $100,000 a year to shell out, especially if I'm going to need care for 5 years. I've got other expenses. This is not even all of my expenses. And consider married couples. Now you got married couples. Husband gets sick, needs to go to a personal care home, and we're going to go through 5 years of paying for that. That's $500,000. If the family was fortunate enough to have $500,000, where does that leave mom for the next 15 years, right? And so then what happens? Well, maybe we choose not to do that. Mom becomes a caregiver. Because mom is the caregiver, she's under a tremendous amount of stress. She develops her own healthcare problems. But let's get away from that. That's a thing that happens. That's a thing that happens, but that's not really the point, right? So now you got personal care home. Call it $100,000 a year. Okay, some of them a little less, some of them a little more. Let's just call it 100. Right. Next step up is a skilled nursing facility. So in a skilled nursing facility, now I need more medical treatment. Okay, there's nurses around all day. I might need IV drugs. I might need rehabilitation. I might need physical therapy. I might need more high level care than what the personal care home is equipped and licensed to provide. So now I'm in a nursing home. Now, nursing homes in Pennsylvania can be $14,000, $15,000 a month. So now we're not talking about $100,000. Now we're talking about $180,000. Now, the nice thing about a skilled nursing facility is this is the first stage of residential care that Medicaid will pay for. Okay, so I can get Medicaid to pay for a skilled nursing facility. I cannot get Medicaid to pay for a personal care home in Pennsylvania. In other states, assisted living facilities, this middle tier of care is paid for by Medicaid. For whatever reasons, you can ask the folks in Harrisburg. Pennsylvania doesn't do that. Okay, so Pennsylvania does not have what we call a waiver program to provide care in assisted living facility. Now let's shake that out a little bit. At first glance, if I need to place my dad in a personal care home, if I need to place my dad in a quote old folks home, I don't know the difference between a personal care home and a skilled nursing facility. I go to the personal care home. The personal care home says, yes, your dad is appropriate for us. I go to the skilled nursing facility. The skilled nursing facility says, yes, your dad is appropriate for us. So which one do I choose? Well, I got $7,000 or $8,000 a month versus $14,000 or $15,000 a month. I guess I'll go personal care. All right. But the difference is, if you go skilled care and you work with a qualified elder law attorney, which is what we do, we can expedite eligibility for Medicaid to pay the skilled nursing facility. So now it's the state of Pennsylvania paying the skilled nursing facility, not you, right? So now your bill is less than had you gone to the personal care home. That's not really what this episode is about, but that's the thing that could occur, okay? But think about the problem that this creates from a policy and decision-making standpoint. We have a healthcare program in the state of Pennsylvania called Medicaid that there are people who could be treated in personal care homes who are being treated in skilled nursing facilities. The skilled nursing facility private pay rate is $15,000. The personal care home private pay rate is $8,000. right? So why is the person in the skilled nursing facility? Because they don't have the money. And so they go on Medicaid. And so now the person who could otherwise be in a personal care home is in a skilled nursing facility, and the state of Pennsylvania is paying the bill, right? But here's the thing. The state of Pennsylvania is paying for skilled care. They are paying more than they would have to pay if dad was in the personal care home, right? So right off the bat, the state's wasting money because we're paying for more care than the person probably needs just because this is the only facility where the guy can get the state to pay. So now the state is overpaying for skilled nursing because they won't pay for personal care, right? That's a problem. But here's the next problem. What in this system is requiring these facilities to have financial problems? You know, they've got third party payment. They have government agencies that are paying their bill. I own a business. I would love to have third party payment. It would be great if the state of Pennsylvania would pay for estate planning services. I would love to build the state of Pennsylvania so that the clients don't have to write a check. Great. How are these businesses going broke if they've got someone else writing the check? And the answer seems to me that Medicaid doesn't pay enough, right? So you've got one hand of the federal government in the other hand of the federal government, and one side doesn't agree with the other side. Let me explain. Medicare, if let's just start with this. Skilled nursing facilities private pay rate may be $14,000 or $15,000. The Medicaid reimbursement rate, they're not getting anywhere near that. Okay, I don't know what they're getting, 8 or 9, but they're not getting 14 or 15. All right. So here we have a situation where, of course, the private pay rate has to go up because the skilled nursing facility doesn't get a fair compensation for the people who are on public benefits. So now you got people in nursing homes, in theory, subsidizing people that are in nursing homes because they're on the government dime and they're paying privately, right? This whole system is messed up, right? Now, here's the thing. Medicaid doesn't pay enough. Okay. So if Medicaid doesn't pay enough to the skilled nursing facilities, they have a challenge paying their bill. Here's another thing. Let's just talk about the economy right now. Inflation is going nuts, right? Wages are going crazy. In particular, after 2020, you find me a whole bunch of nurses who want to work in long-term care settings. They all got burnt out during 2020. So we don't have enough care providers. They want more money to do the job. Okay. So the people there's high turnover and the wages are increased. So the wages are the operating expenses in the nursing home. Their cost of doing business has increased. Got it. Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services has recently said that nursing homes should have to hire more people per resident. Okay. So now you've got the nursing homes being forced to hire more people. Now, having more care providers in a nursing home is not a bad thing. The people who own the nursing homes would tell you, we would love to provide more care for people if we're fairly compensated for that care. We want to have 5 stars every single time. They want to do a good job. Okay. There's every financial incentive in the world for them to do a good job. So we would love to have enough people. We'd love to have more people, but Medicaid doesn't pay us enough. So we're forced to accept Medicaid. If we want to accept Medicaid, we have to accept their rules. So we need Medicaid because otherwise we're going to have people in here who aren't paying us anything. So we have to accept Medicaid, but Medicaid's reimbursement rates don't reflect reality. So we got Medicaid. They're telling me I got to hire more people. The rates are through the roof, and you're not paying us anymore. That's why you have 21 bankruptcies in a month. We've got government regulation saying you have to hire more people. And the same government agency is saying, yeah, but we won't pay you more. Okay, I'm out. I am out. Profit or nonprofit, that is a difficult position for a business leadership to be in. You're making me increase expenses. The government is making me increase expenses. The government who pays my bill is saying we're not going to pay you for it. Okay, well, then I guess I'm out of business. I guess I need to restructure. And that's what's going on here. So what are some fixes? They could simply pay more. Medicaid could pay fair rates to nursing homes. That would be good. Okay. Another fix we should probably all be taking a look at is a valid question to ask why Medicare is treating cancer patients better than Alzheimer's patients. I don't know that anybody has the political wherewithal to fix this problem. I don't know how we would pay for this problem. I'm not a politician as it stands right now. But it is a fair question to ask. Why does Medicare, forget about Medicare, why do we have a government system that is picking financial winners and losers based on the healthcare event I will ultimately have, which is entirely outside of my control? If I have cancer, they're going to give me meds. They're going to give me surgery. If I have dementia, I'm on my own at 15 grand a month. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Okay. But that's the way the system works. So if anybody really wanted to get serious about this, hey, politicians, listen up. If anybody really wanted to get serious about this, we'd be talking about long-term care being fixed at the Medicare level, then we wouldn't have to have the Medicaid debate. But because we have to have the Medicaid debate, you need to increase reimbursement rates, or we're not going to have any place to send our seniors. When I need care, I'm not going to have a place to go. That's unacceptable to me. All right. So we need to take a look at this. And these nursing homes are going out of business at a pretty fair clip right now. It seems like this is not a thing to kick the can down 4 or 5 different sessions of Congress. You need to get on it, right? That's my opinion. I'll get off my soapbox a little bit. The third thing we could do, if we really wanted to take a serious look at fixing this, is ask a reasonable question. Why in the world doesn't Pennsylvania Medicaid pay for lower tiers of care if other states do? That's a reasonable question to ask. If you can get assisted living paid for by Medicaid at a lower rate than what Medicaid would have to pay the skilled nursing facility, if I can go into Ohio and get that done, which I can, why are we not doing it in Pennsylvania? Doesn't make any sense, right? So there's at least a couple of solutions. There's other proposals out there about forcing in long-term care policies as part, and all of these things. I consider myself to be fiscally conservative. Everything I'm suggesting would require an increase in taxes. So is it a thing that we even have the wherewithal to do? And now I'm getting away from the politicians. I'm just asking a question. Is this a thing we want to do? Do we want to live in a world where nursing homes are going out of business because we're not paying them enough? I don't, because I have 3 out of my 4 grandparents had dementia, and I don't like my odds, and I'm going to need a place to go. And I don't want to go there. I can't, it's not like I'm waiting to go to a nursing home, but we had better have an answer for the question for the baby boomer population. And so that is my message today. I want to also make the point that if you're listening to this and just finding it interesting, or if you're listening to this and thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on here? This is why you need to work with elder law attorneys, because elder law attorneys do more than just answer the question, who gets my stuff when I pass away? We pay attention to what's going on in the world, and particularly the long-term care world, trying to make sure that when I know I have clients who are going to need long-term care, we're going to know how they're going to get that care and how they're going to pay for it and how they can protect money from this stupid system and continue to live and try to advocate in our client's best interest. That's what elder law attorneys do. Whether you want to work with my law firm, whether you want to work with other law firms, when people ask me, what is the difference between elder law and more traditional estate planning, the answer is the primary purpose of traditional estate planning is to answer the question, who gets my stuff when I pass away, and how do we do it in a tax efficient manner? And do we avoid the probate courts, and how do we make it easy on the family? And are there terms and conditions we need to put around this inheritance and all the rest, right? It's a focus on what happens when I pass away. Elder law attorneys answer those questions. We also answer the question, what happens if I get really, really sick before I pass away? Given that this long-term care system is broken, given that the current situation is that Medicaid will only pay for care if I'm broke, how do I make myself eligible for Medicaid benefits without going broke? Right? That's a thing we wrestle with our clients. That's what our estate planning workshops are all about, the 3 secrets to protect your legacy. It's all about asset protection. It's all about recognizing that the system is broken, but that there are opportunities within the broken system for the well-informed. And so we put out lots of content. This is the fundamental reason why I'm talking to you today on this radio show, is so that you have the information that you need to make the decisions in the best interest of yourself and your family, right? If we start with the premise that the system is broken, and I would advocate that the system is broken, and is going to fail a lot of your seniors, then a lot of our seniors, then I think it's a reasonable question to ask. Well, I've worked awful hard to accumulate my stuff. I understand that there are systemic problems that we should change as a society, but I don't have the faith that the people in Congress are actually going to do that. So, how do I protect my family from these rules? If you're interested in that question, go to sechlerlawfirm.com, come to one of our upcoming estate planning workshops, and we're going to teach you how to do it. I want to thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you found this interesting, go ahead and engage with us on social media. We'd love to hear from you. Come to one of our workshops, and I look forward to meeting you soon. Thanks for listening to today's show.